So I don't know if you can see, but there's a rather long stacked train behind us on the Rockville Bridge. That train has been there for about, what, 10 minutes now?
Yeah.
This is how your stuff gets to you. Stuff like that. Just imagine every one of those cars being a semi-truck on your highway.
At least one.
Yeah.
Some of them are doing doubles.
Yeah, some of them are double stacked, so those would be two.
So now there's double stacks going right now.
I wonder how long this will be, and I wonder if any other trains are going to come during this broadcast.
Probably.
Anyway.
Explain the wine.
This is a bottle of Cana wedding wine. My parents got this for us back in Jerusalem, or somewhere in Israel, in 2019. And we were planning on drinking it on our first anniversary. Then the pandemic happened. So, it smells like it's old.
Old-fashioned, at least.
And
it smells good, though.
People keep bottles of wine for years at a time, so it should be okay.
And then we also have our piece of our wedding cake as good luck.
And the place we're at right now is a place called the Bridgeview B&B. And we went there...
You want more icing or less?
Less. We went there back a while ago, back when I was in college. We went there twice, and then for our honeymoon. And as you can see, it is right next to the busiest train bridge in the U.S.
It's crumbling. We can feed each other.
That train is still going. The bridge is a mile long, and there's still train on the other side of it.
You can get that piece.
Okay.
It's goopy, but... Alright.
Cheers.
Cheers. It's starting to taste like the freezer.
It does taste like the freezer. Let's see how all the wine held up.
Not too bad coming from all the way from Jerusalem. Or at least Israel.
I think it tastes like vinegar.
A little bit.
It's not bad though. So which wedding story should we tell first?
How about we go from the beginning?
You're barely on camera. There you are.
Maybe we should go to the beginning.
How far is the beginning?
Oh, well, the rehearsal was interesting. Considering that it was a Catholic rehearsal, it made it a lot more fun, I guess, in a way, but it was a little more difficult. Bless you.
Thank you.
It was a bit more difficult because you have a certain way of doing things, even though Father Jonathan thankfully was very lax. It was difficult to remember all the steps, but
Okay, there's the end of the train.
yay.
It'll roll by in a bit. Oh, by the way, for those watching, can you just comment? Can you hear us okay?
Just to be sure.
Just say yes, no, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah. Just wave. But it was, well, so prior to the wedding, story-wise, it was very difficult to get everyone together. And it was difficult on both ends. You were at least able for one day, I think.
Well, Randy was in California then, and he got married like a week before. Okay, yes, you can hear us good.
Good. But getting everyone together was a struggle, and then when it came down to the wire, then pretty much all the ladies came together for a bachelorette party at the last second, and we made all the centerpieces in one afternoon. And that was with the Glock Diaz's, Quinn, and a good portion of your family. Aunt Barbara was there, Tia Ale.
At your bachelorette party?
Yeah.
Which bachelorette party?
Where we went to Wisehaven.
Oh, that was a bachelorette party? I thought it was...
Kinda, it was a makeshift bachelorette party because I couldn't get everyone together prior to that.
I thought it was just a sign-making party.
Well, it was that, but it was a fun day with the girls.
Alright, well... I had my bachelor party back in Morgantown about, like 2 months before the wedding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty fun. We sat around pre-game for a bit, drank some Budweiser and Jack Daniels. I told my Africa stories, which I love doing at parties. Then we went clubbing for a bit. I hit my drinking limit and took an Uber home. Which, it was a pretty good party, but not crazy like everyone else says.
Having it crazy isn't always the best thing.
Okay, here's the end of the train. That train was out here for like 10 minutes before we started the video. And there's a very good chance there may be another one soon, but he has a board inside that shows where all the trains are, and we're down under the deck right now because it's shaded and the weather's actually pretty nice right now, and I don't want to be out in the sun because I think I would fry.
Me.
Yeah, you do fry in the sun easier than I do. I had a bunch of rules listed up for my bachelor party, like no drugs, no sex, nothing that she would disapprove of. So, what?
I'm blessed.
Well, that's what everyone does at their bachelor party. They like go out and try to fool around with everyone they can.
Yeah.
I never really wanted to do that.
Bachelorette parties do the same. But,
Yeah, but Jake, if you're watching this, thanks again for my bachelor party. That was a good time back in Morgantown. Well, anyway, then I went to the summit, came home about 2 weeks before the wedding, and that's when stuff really kicked off.
You want to tell about the no?
Yeah.
Okay. We with the rehearsal, that was an interesting endeavor, and then the rehearsal dinner, that was a lot of fun at the First Post.
The First Post is a great place to have a party like that.
Absolutely. I got to meet some of your family I hadn't met yet.
A lot of my Texas family.
Yeah. But the real one was the wedding day itself. And there was so much that happened behind the scenes I don't think a lot of people knew happened. And it was quite interesting, but it kind of made it a lot more memorable. So it started off more on your side than my side. Mine.
Well, you said you had a bad Charlie horse first thing in the morning.
Well, yeah. So right when I'm waking up in the morning, I get like a massive Charlie horse to the point I cannot walk. I had to use my cane and limp to the bathroom in the morning. And then my mom showed up because we had to wake up extra early so we could last second grab everything, because we couldn't take everything to the church the night before where we were going to have our ceremony. And also the after party and everything. I was a little perturbed that we couldn't just take everything the night before and be a little more relaxed, but we had to get everything together in the morning before everything, hence why I'm glad we did a 2 o'clock service.
It was 3.
3. Well, we were getting together by 2. But I ended up making so many trips back and forth, because at that time I lived up off the Susquehanna Trail, and I was going basically from North York to East York, and sometimes that's not an easy task. And we had to make 2 trips to and from Sam's Club, because Sam's Club's primarily where I got a lot of everything. So anyone watching this that's having a wedding soon, get your cake from Sam's Club. And this isn't me saying it because I worked there. I actually called a baker just to like do the traditional thing. I called them and was quoted $537 for a 2-tier cake. And that was, I think it was chocolate and then white frosting.
Something like that.
Like it was white chocolate endeavor kind of thing. It was kind of something crazy, and that was their basic. And I thought, just a white cake could do? And they're like, that's the same price either way. I'm like, really? And I was quoted for $537 for a little 2-tier cake. It wasn't even like a big cake. It was just this little itty bitty thing. And for the same size, maybe a little bigger, it was $30 at Sam's. So it was a big difference. And shout out to my mom who got the cake and all the cake for all the guests, because I ended up getting 2 entire sheet cakes, as well as our 2-tier for our cake cutting, which you were surprised by. You had no idea what it was going to look like.
No.
Because I just went and ordered it. You said, I'll trust your judgment.
You feed me well. I trust your judgment on anything like that.
But I ordered the cake, and it was a succulent kind of design. It turned out really, really pretty, and I'm so glad for the help from my coworkers and ladies in the bakery who helped make it beautiful for our day. But again, if you want a cake, go to Sam's, because for 2 full sheet cakes and a 2-tier, it ended up being, I think it was $110 or something like that, give or take. Oh, yeah, and my mom just made the comment, make sure you fill your gas tank the night before. She was having issues, her gauge liked to be bipolar. So one time it would be accurate, and the next time it wouldn't be accurate at all. And she thought she had enough gas, and she went to start her car to get another load of stuff and go across town, and she ran out of gas. That was very inconvenient. Mine was full of gas for the most part, but
there's another train starting across the bridge from down there.
we'll see it momentarily coming across.
Looks like another
us.
double stack train.
Nice. There's a lot of freight trains that come through. But that was something I don't think you knew about until after the fact.
No.
And way after the fact. I think it was after the wedding when you found out.
It was after the wedding when I found out about just about all of this.
Pretty much, because we did the traditional thing. He slept at his parents' house. I slept at my place. And we didn't see each other until we were walking down the aisle. It got pretty stressful. The gas thing was the tip of the iceberg and the start of the downfall, I feel like, in a way. Because all the setup had to be done that morning. And I personally thought I would end up with a couple more of the groomsmen and bridesmaids helping. But the Glock Diaz's, the girls, it was Shelly, Becca, and Emmy, as well as Quinn. Quinn organized the entire dance floor. She's the one that set it up. So everyone needs to thank Quinn big time, because she was the one that orchestrated putting that entire room together in the gymnasium. I had no idea until she said, hey, can you check us out, make sure I'm doing it right? Because I gave her some pointers of how they said that they've set up in the past and it worked.
Here's the train.
Ooh, they have a 3-header.
They're almost all triple headers.
Yeah.
And just about every other train we've seen so far, it has another engine halfway back in the train. It's something called a DPU.
But, it was...
Wow, he's really short.
Yeah,
He's already almost over.
He's only over the length of the bridge. But, so Quinn somehow, by some miracle, got everything set up with Shelly and the girls. And right before I walked over to the church, I checked it, and it's like, oh my God, the room's an entirely different place. One of the hiccup we had coming across this, since it was so hot that week, my candles were melting. Like, I ended up losing so many candles because it was hot. They simply were melting from one end of town to the other in the car. Like, I put them in the trunk and they melted from North York to East York. And that was frustrating.
Let me tell you something about the heat. I have many of you watching this right now that hear me talk about Texas and how great it is there, because it's great there, and just dismiss it with, it's hot there. Yeah, but they have Whataburger there. It's hot there. Don't act like you don't do this, because you do this. And the train is right about to end. These are empty flat cars. You can just barely see. Anyway, all my Texas family came up for the wedding, and here in central Pennsylvania in the summer, and it was too hot for most of them.
Yeah, there was a couple of them. They were really complaining because it was so muggy. And it was just unbearable. I forget who it was said they ended up kind of hiding in either your parents' house or in their room, like their hotel room. I can't remember who it was, but they mentioned that. I said, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, my parents got married in D.C. Same deal. All the Texas family was too hot for them. And I've been in Texas in the summer, and I've been here in the summer. They're both pretty miserable places.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we set up everything the way we did, because we wanted to somewhat do it outdoor-indoor kind of thing, but all these venues want way, way too much, and we had too big of a party to really have the good venues that were half and half kind of thing, so indoor, outdoor, and they wanted way too much. So the church ended up being the cheapest for doing it in the church's school at St. Joe's, and I'm glad we did it that way because it was easy. Everyone just walked next door. But
Yeah. Our party would only have been able to fit at the biggest thing at Lamont, and that was what, like 16,000?
something like that, and that was just pretty much, well, no, it was, okay, so the only one at Lamont that would have been big enough to handle everybody and handle the volume that we were going to have, as well as the potential of everything we wanted, would have been the Japanese garden. But I wasn't really going for that kind of theme, but I could have made it work. But starting at $10,000 to rent the area is a little much, because then you have to get a caterer, get this, get that. My caterer was $2,000, and that was the food truck, which I recommend because I've heard nothing but good from everybody, and they were happy because it wasn't too dense. It was greasy, but not really that bad. But the Draviks are awesome with that. Z&D Fries did amazing. And a little bit of tidbit of information, I actually had gotten a text right before that the wife had open heart, and I'm like, oh my god, am I losing my caterer? And Mike, he actually said, no, I'll be doing it, and I'll have another driver, and I knew who it was.
Mike, the other guy, not me.
Yeah, his name happens to be Mike too, but the owners are Mike and Diane. Diane was my bus driver in high school, and I actually worked for her for a period of time too. So they just charged me like everyone else, and I was perfectly fine with that. It's better than paying at start, I think, $50 a person for high class dining, which we wanted something relaxed. We didn't want, oh, you got to sit down proper and eat a steak. But that wasn't our style. We wanted everyone to kick back, have fun. And from what I hear, everyone did just that. Everyone had a blast, and I'm glad. But so to move past the rehearsal, I guess, the next story would have been, we kind of leaked over into that morning, but one of the first things was my mom running out of gas in her car that she had at the time, and then we're kind of like, I have my friend Quinn was helping with my nails, my best friend, she was doing my nails. Another friend of mine, Halsey, she was doing my hair. I worked with her at Rutgers, and she is a great cosmetologist. And then Bailey Hess, now she was Bogdan still then, she did my makeup, which she did an amazing job, and covered up, she actually covered up a bruise that was on my arm from work, because I worked up until the wedding pretty much, and she covered that up. She covered up quite a lot, and I looked like $1 million, I guess. That's what everyone said, and you said I looked really good too.
You did look really good that day.
But I was kind of slightly panicking at one point, because my mom and my brother had to go back across town because they were sweating from getting everything switched over. And I didn't sweat too badly because I was trying to orchestrate everything in the school, which was air conditioned, thank God, at that time. And we were in the library part doing all of our stuff that the ladies needed to get done and getting me dressed. And I was somewhat panicking because we were running shorter and shorter on time. And one of those, I want to have enough time for everything, and I want to make sure everyone's there at the time. And they were still up in North York, and it was getting to be lunchtime, and I'm like, oh, we're getting close. And my mom because I called and I said, how you doing? And she's like, we're getting showers, but we can't find our clothes. I'm like, uh-oh. And they ended up grabbing something that wasn't what they were originally going to wear. My brother pretty much wore everything he was going to wear, but he was missing his tie. He couldn't find it. And they could have swore it was still in the car. They looked in the car multiple times, couldn't find it. Looked in the apartment, couldn't find it. My mom's dress was completely AWOL, and I had gotten that for her. She ended up grabbing one of her denim dresses that she had, and she wore that just because she didn't have much options. And so they came back across town, but as they were coming across town, everyone's trying to finish up, and then I have Luke and Elijah come across.
Can I take this one?
Sure.
So
yeah,
from my end
because
of
you
town,
need to explain first, because it happened first on your end, and then they came over to me.
So we had all the groomsmen meet up at Round the Clock East for breakfast, and then after that we went home, got changed, and I was sending my groomsmen out to go run some different errands. And I sent one of my groomsmen, who will remain nameless for now, and you can just say this guy for when you tell the story later. You know who you are, and most of the rest of you also know who he is.
And don't feel bad about it. We've already talked about it.
I'll explain why you shouldn't feel about it in a bit. But, what?
Remember not.
Don't worry, I know what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Anyway, I finally got in the car with Luke and Elijah to head to the church. I had my tux on, and right as we were driving past the cornfields by my parents' house, I remember the Beatles song "I Want to Hold Your Hand" was playing on the radio. Luke intentionally put that one on. And I got the call from him saying, I just crashed your car. And it was my grandfather's car that he had let us borrow for the day, and he said that we could borrow it for the honeymoon. And I just borrowed it to go down to the summit for a few weeks. And so my heart just about stopped then. He said, I crashed your car. So I was kind of afraid that I was going to get disowned then, and that was going to ruin my wedding day. So I got there and I was thinking, what do we do now? I could get to Boston soon, get married there, have a honeymoon there. And then Elijah and Luke went to break the news to you after that.
Yeah, they came over and...
in the midst of everything.
Yeah, because everyone was kind of like trying to hustle, finishing. I literally had Halsey finishing up my hair, Bailey trying to finishing my eyes, and Quinn was trying to finish up my nails because she was having a hard time with two of my nails not wanting to stick. And key thing, this nail ended up falling off. That is the one that did not want to stick for the life of it. She put super glue on it, and it still didn't want to stick, and it fell off 5 minutes after everyone left. So it held up for all the pictures, except for that. But back to the story. I had all of them fixing me up, and I had all these people on me, and the boys came in nervous. And Elijah was stuttering, so we need your help to calm Mike down. I said, what's wrong? And he's like,
This person.
So this person, I said, Elijah, spit it out. He said, this person wrecked Gramps' car, and Mike wants to run away. He said he wants to go to Boston and get married. I said, what? I said, we're walking down the aisle in just a few short hours, if that. I said, it's like 2 hours. I said, no. I said, why? I said, what happened? He said, the car's totaled. I'm like, oh God. I said, are they okay? He said, yeah. He said, but all the airbags went off and they said it's not good. I'm like, I said, are they okay? They said, yeah, he's fine. And I said, well, that's what matters. And I'm trying to figure, I said, we're not supposed to see each other. I said, what are we supposed to do? And then Kat, my wonderful photographer, and we were her first wedding. She said, I'll go talk to Mike. I'm like, Thank
this is
God.
my first time meeting her, by the way.
Yeah, Mike never met her. I actually met Catherine at work. She was the HMS girl at the time, making the pre-made food, and she had the aspiration to be a photographer. And I believe I invited a lot of you to Mama Bird Photography, and she's an LLC now.
I hear another train.
Yep, they're going across.
Yep, start from this way going over.
But we were her first wedding at the time, and she said, I'll go talk to Mike. She heard a lot about Mike. She knew a good handful of things with us. And she said, I'll go talk to him. And I said, okay, please, just talk him. I said, I literally have almost everything done. And by that point, she went over, I guess you could say, your part.
Oh, they just tried to calm me down and said, oh, it's your wedding day. Things go wrong on your wedding day all the time.
Makes it memorable.
I suppose it does, but I don't even remember the rest of the stuff she said, but she finally did calm me down enough that I no longer wanted to go to Boston.
But, and in the meantime of that, by the time I stood back up, after everyone finished, I stood up and I realized my dress had gotten bigger because I lost a lot of weight before the wedding. I guess because of the stress of things. Because I had a great deal of stress at work because it was me and only 2 other people, and that was pretty much it. And I wasn't sleeping a whole lot. Just as an example, the night before we had our rehearsal dinner, and I drank to relax, and my mom had to drive, and this is another shout out to Janae Hart. She's now Casio, I think it's called, her new last name now. But she was my team lead now at the time, and she's now one of our coaches at Sam's. But she went to school for culinary, and she actually did my side dishes, so the potato salad, the baked beans. She did all that and panned it up for me. And she had worked like all day, open to close at Sam's. She went home, did all of that, had her now husband, Evan, help her. And they were finishing up when we got up to her home, and I profusely thanked her, and it was like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning till we left her house. And she was getting back up to go back to work at 3 in the morning to be there at 4. And she still made it to my wedding. She didn't come for the ceremony, but she made it to my wedding. And that meant the world. And that was her dedication, and that meant a lot. But, so, back to where we were with the car accident. And got you, and I had lost weight from all the stress of work, and then the wedding coming up, trying to make sure I had everything paid off and ready to go. And
flat spot.
Yep. And then
if you ever hear a train, it's going bang, 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 bang. It's sometimes when they drag the train wheels, they have the brakes on and they move the train somewhere, the part of the wheel will get worn down flat, and then it goes around bonk, bonk, bonk. So that's what that sound is.
But back to, but anyway, the dress I had bought, I actually bought it at twice upscale resale. Pretty awesome place in West York. But I bought it. It was actually pretty tight when I first bought it. And I did that intentionally, just because dresses usually are tight for the wedding, and now that you can wedge yourself in those dresses. But I got to the wedding and it was loose, like it was kind of falling off. And we're like, okay, what are we gonna do? I thought, I can't remember who thought of it first or if it was me. Toilet paper. So we literally went to the bathroom around the corner in the school and did like 4 rolls of toilet paper. I don't know if any of you knew that. I said about it to a few like close people, but there was actually 4 rolls of toilet paper in my dress to keep everything where it needed to be in a proper way. And That was also another wardrobe malfunction, was the fact when I did that, it held everything properly, the dress fit properly then, but my shoes should have been closed toe because the tip of my dress in the front, that's why if any of you may have noticed I was a little uncomfortable walking down the aisle, it's because my dress kept getting caught in the tips of my toes.
Another train coming from that way.
Yeah.
Hey, that marks 4 trains so far.
But it kept getting caught in the tips of my toes, between my toes and my shoes, and kept wanting to pull my dress down. And I had this insatiable panic of, oh my God, I'm gonna flash everybody. It was awful. I was so nervous because it kept wanting to pull my dress down, and I kept getting stuck on the front of my dress. Was it the rehearsal or the main that I actually... No, it was the main wedding. That's why Luke came up to help me up, because I was stuck on my dress. I couldn't get back up after kneeling, and that was awful. Because I was like getting panic. I'm like, oh God.
So after the car crash, some of my groomsmen went and got Chick-fil-A, and we sat in the vesting sacristy at St. Joe's. For those of you non-Catholics, this is the room in the back of the church where the priest puts on his priest clothes. I'm not going to say vestments because no one who is not Catholic would know what that is. It's also where the altar servers get dressed. But there are some comfy chairs in there, so we sat there, ate some Chick-fil-A, and watched some Bob's Burgers. And then Bishop Brennan showed up a bit after that. Now, back when he was just Father Brennan, Bishop Brennan, he's now the Bishop of Wheeling, Charleston, which covers all of West Virginia, which he got that position like a month after our wedding. But at the time of our wedding, he was an associate bishop in Baltimore.
So bishop, but not head bishop.
Yeah. And he did my parents' wedding, and he baptized me and basically brought my mom into the faith in a way. So he was pretty influential in my parents' lives. And the train gonna come on the bridge now, or what?
I think he has to brake for the speed limit that they have.
He's been braking for like 5 minutes now. Anyway, so Bishop Brennan showed up, and right before that, apparently he scared the lady who was the sacristan. She's the one that gets the church ready to go.
Mm-hmm. She was panicking and a little upset at us that we didn't tell her that a bishop was coming, and we said we kind of didn't know until last second.
That's true. We thought that he was going to be doing the wedding up until the last second. There he is.
Yeah. Okay.
Jesus Christ, he's giving those air brakes a workout. And we were going to see if he could co-officiate the wedding, but he said that if there's a bishop there, then the bishop has to be the primary one. And he has to be the primary one doing the wedding, and he didn't want to step on the toes of the priest that was doing our marriage prep, even though the priest doing our marriage prep didn't end up actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We had the priest come in, Father Jonathan, and he was a lot better with kids than we were, and that kind of helped the wedding go along. He's the priest that always did the school masses at St. Joe's.
Yeah, he was the kid favorite.
Oh, it's just a power move. That's when they move engines around, because right down there is the Harrisburg yard, and around the bridge and down this side of the river is the Enola yard. So 2 pretty big freight yards that they frequently move the engines between. So he came in, Bishop Brennan came in, and we were talking. He had no idea how we did the marriage prep or how we stayed engaged, because I'd been living in Morgantown for our whole engagement, which ended up being about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't believe that. But we did eat some Chick-fil-A and watch some Bob's Burgers. And there's a picture of me lounging back in my tux, drinking from a Chick-fil-A cup.
Yeah, at least you had the relaxation. You guys have it way too easy. Us girls were freaking panicking.
We were going to do a first look, like some people do, before the ceremony, but we didn't end up having time for that.
No, well, that was the other thing
You
is...
can take back over now.
Yeah, I was calling because my maid of honor, Quinn, she was trying to keep a hold of my phone and stuff like that. And I was like, I need to call Mom and Andrew. they're kind of running late. I said, they should be here by now. And they were just leaving the apartment that I had before up in North York. Oh gosh, I think it was only 20 minutes before, and traffic was getting bad. And I said, where are you guys at? And she's like, we're on our way. We're trying to get across town. I said, we're kind of waiting on you guys, not to be offensive. She said, I know. We were trying to find our clothes we're supposed to have, because... And then she said we had to just last second find something. And I'm like, oh boy. Andrew pretty much wore everything he was going to wear. But my mom wore a separate dress for the ceremony itself. And they came over and across, and it ended up being, I think, 20 minutes after, till they finally made it over. And it wasn't their fault. There was a lot of traffic, and I think, if I remember right, there was an accident on 30 that day too.
There's always an accident on 30.
Yeah, especially midday. But they finally made it over. They were looking again in the kitchen area, see if their clothes were in a box or something. They were looking everywhere, couldn't find it. And they came pretty much last second, nick of time. It gave more time for some of our guests to show up for the ceremony itself. And I was sitting kind of around the corner hiding. I believe there was a few groups that had seen me. And our ladies were standing in line waiting to go in. The bridesmaids, they were standing waiting to go in because they processed first. And they wanted to process. And Donna, who was the sacristan at the time, she had asked, she's like, how far out is your mom? She's like, we're kind of waiting for her because she processes first. Parents process first.
Yeah.
And I said, she's saying she's right around the corner. She's literally like 5 or 10 minutes out. She said, okay. She said, we're going to try and hold off and stall a little bit. She said, it gives people, they're chit-chatting in there. They're doing okay, it seems. She said, but don't want it to be too long. I said, I understand. And waited and waited. It was... oh gosh, it was probably 25 minutes after when we were supposed to start originally.
It was supposed to start at 3 o'clock.
And it ended up being closer to 3:30. But, and they finally came running in. Mom was pretty upset because she wanted the dress that I got her, and she couldn't find it, and we didn't understand where it went. And so my brother walked her down, and he came back up around and waited in the back of the line because he was going to give me away. And so we did all of that, and we were doing our vows and everything. And then this was behind the scenes for me because I didn't find this out until right after the ceremony. My maid of honor turned around, nudged either my mom or my brother. She said, I forgot the ring. I forgot the ring. It's in the room. So my mom said, what? You've got to be kidding. And my brother said, no. So all of our guests, if you're watching, you probably remember my brother getting up quickly and taking off. And I thought, well, what's going on? I thought maybe he went to the bathroom. And apparently, because my brother he told me later, he's like, did you know I got locked out of the church?
Wait, he did?
Yes!
I didn't know this.
Yes! Because, he asked, I can go through the front, right? They said, yeah, it's going to be unlocked. It's unlocked for everybody. And so he ran over to the school. There was no doors open other than the kitchen door. That was the only door unlocked. He tried all the doors and finally hit the kitchen door, which was unlocked. So he's running around trying to get in. He finally got in, got into the room, found the rings, came back out. Well, Mike's ring. Came back out, ran back over. Doors were locked. All of them were locked except for the back door that everyone probably came in.
The door of the parking lot is the back door.
Yeah.
They kind of try and pretend like it's the front door, but the front doors are the big, fancy ones facing the big open lawn.
Yeah.
Which most people don't go in that way for Mass.
Yeah, Andrew tried to get in that door, and it was locked. And he tried so many doors, and they were locked, except for the back doors, which are the main doors everyone comes in. And he finally came in, pretty much in the nick of time, and handed it off to Quinn, and Quinn handed it off to me. And we were kind of like at a pause for a minute.
I was wondering what was going on.
Yeah, because we were like, and Quinn's like, hold on. And she was acting like she was trying to dig it out. I'm like, you forgot the ring. I said, I'm sorry.
You skipped straight from pre-wedding to the rings. A lot happened between then and then. So, if
Well, I
you
did
go on,
my part.
if you go on Facebook and look at basically any wedding page, they'll share reactions of groomsmen seeing their wives coming down the aisle, and they'll be crying and all emotional. I saw her coming, and I was like, well, it's about freaking time. Because we've been engaged for 2.5 years at that point.
And then we were also waiting because everything kept stalling everything. And no one's a particular fault because everyone had a part in that. Yeah, everyone kind of had a part in that it just kept getting stalled, it seemed.
So, I saw her coming, thought, it's about freaking time. We got her down the aisle, and I didn't cry or shed any tears, but the opening song was Simple Gifts, which is a song that the WVU band plays before every football game and at graduations, which is a regular hymn, and you can look up the words to it if you don't know it. And so we sat down.
Oh, you're saying this story. Okay.
Which story?
The Bernie?
No, that...
No.
I could tell about Bernie.
That was part of marriage prep kind of thing.
Bernie was our organist, and the organist from St. Joe's, who we know pretty well, wasn't there that week. He was out of town.
He was on vacation.
So my aunt, Becky, she sang for us at the wedding, and she normally sings at Holy Trinity Church over in Columbia, and Bernie was the organist there, so the Sunday before the wedding, we decided, okay, we're just going to go to Mass at Holy Trinity, because we have to go to Mass anyway, and we'll just meet with Bernie after that. So we did, and first the priest talked for 45 minutes, and he was an African priest with a really, really thick accent, so you could only understand like every third word of it. Yeah, that's not fun. But, fun fact, my grandfather who goes to that church, if church goes longer than an hour, he just leaves. Because he says, Jesus asks for 1 hour a week. I gave him my 1 hour this week. See ya. Anyway, Bernie looked at our wedding program that I had typed up in Microsoft Word and just kind of went berserk. Like, every little error he saw, he would be like, and I'd just be like, okay, well, we'll make a note of it. We'll just change that when I get home. Sometimes he'd see the same error later on in the program that he saw earlier, and he'd be like, see, I keep telling you, you can't have it like this.
It's like you never gave us a chance to change it from like 5 seconds ago.
If I had my laptop with me, I would have just used my Microsoft Word magic, which I probably know how to do better than any of you watching, and made it better. But then the wedding day came, and apparently he was still going when he got to St. Joe's.
Didn't he like get uppity with Donna and...
I don't know the details behind that, but I hear that he did, and he did it bad enough that he got blacklisted from coming back to St. Joe's.
I don't know, all we heard is that things didn't go well behind the scenes on that either. Like, it went well during ceremony, but like, if there was something else going on, we were told it was, they didn't want him there again. We're not sure why, so that's not on us.
Oh, by the way, I said earlier that my groomsman wrecked Gramps' car. I can't go into details about it because it's kind of a personal matter, but it ended up working out pretty well for them anyway after they got the insurance and everything done with that. Hey, kid, how's it going? So, don't worry, everything worked out with that.
Yeah, everything worked out in the end. They were trying to figure out cars anyway, but fate figured it out for them, so it was less stressful.
That car was not supposed to be in their lives.
Yeah, it just, God wanted it that way, I'm guessing, because it was like a weird freak thing that happened, and because Granny said that, she said it just worked out in the end, because they have a garage for one vehicle anyway, and they didn't really, from the way she talked, they didn't really need the 2 cars anymore. But
they live in a pretty good place in Elizabethtown.
Yeah, it just worked out best for them, it seemed, over time. But weird blessing in disguise.
I think we have an approach signal on this train bridge, so we might be getting another train soon, but I can't exactly tell.
Yeah, night you can tell better.
Yeah, yellow over 2 red signals usually means approach. So, then wedding happened, Mr. and Mrs. Motter happened. We went out and did the receiving line. That was pretty unremarkable. Took a few pictures and then went over for the reception. And like I said, it was in the school gym at St. Joe's, which I'd spent a lot of time in because I went to school at St. Joe's from 1st to 5th grade. Then did youth group events in there. After that, went there for my little siblings' school plays. About a wake on the river.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Susquehanna River behind us. For those of you who are not from here, it is the big river in central PA. And Miss Shelley, I gotta give it to you. You really did set the gym up pretty good for the reception. Like, I hadn't seen it until I walked in at the reception. And our DJ played, when we walked in, he played Play Something Country. That was the song that I figured, and it kind of set the tone for the rest of the night. We played a lot of country music, but we walked in, everyone cheered for the new Mr. and Mrs. Motter, and we walked in and I saw the gym, and it was amazing, and I loved seeing everyone there. We did our first dance to God Bless the Broken Road.
Our song.
Kind of describes a lot of stuff. And the rest of the night, I ate just a hamburger and french fries on my wedding day.
I'm more so picked at my french fries.
Yeah. And the wedding was... Okay, I see you, Sue. The wedding was BYOB because we in no way could afford an open bar. So, a lot of people associate weddings with alcohol. In fact, I would tell people I was getting married when I was back in college. They'd go, "Oh, really? I love weddings because you get unlimited free alcohol."
Yeah, we didn't want to do that because it ends up being more of a headache in the end. I've heard so many horror stories related to it, and we were like, okay, we don't want that horror. And not only that, they're expensive, very expensive, because they give you a certain allotment, but they still bring extra, and if you go past that, you have to pay extra for every little bit that's drank. We had thought about like a ticket bar or something like that.
Yeah, Tiana had a ticket bar at her wedding.
Yeah, but we thought, no, you know what? Everyone is from different parts of the U.S. Because you had family from Oregon.
Oregon, Texas, West Virginia, the good part of West Virginia.
Wasn't there some from New York? Or someone from New York or up north?
There might have been, I'm not sure.
I don't know. Everyone brought something different. And your parents provided pretty much all the Yingling.
Yeah, they bought a lot of Yingling. And then for like a year after this, I'd go back to my parents and my dad would be like, "Here, it's a beer. It's the last beer from your wedding."
That happened like a handful of times.
Then I'd go back a few weeks later and be like, "Here, it's the last beer from your wedding. Here, it's the last beer from your wedding." That started up all the way until the pandemic started and we drank beers from 6 feet away. Oh god, that was fun. But anyway, there's also another picture somewhere of Luke and my other groomsmen at Giant with a shopping cart full to the brim with giant soda bottles. We had all you can drink soda, and my parents' garage was so full of soda for a long time afterward.
Well, it's like, that was an interesting endeavor too, because we literally sat down and we're like, okay, so how are we going to utilize our best bang for buck for drinks? Because the caterer, I literally paid them just for the hamburgers, french fries, and hot dogs. And it ended up working out, I think, to $5 a person.
Yeah, $5 a person for the drinks, that's it. My dad did give some alcohol to some people.
Yeah, I think it was a 6-pack at every table.
A 6-pack, but it was like a couple different kinds of beer, some little bottles of wine. And Scott Anthony said that he mentioned whiskey to my dad once and my dad just gave him some. I don't know how that happened. The only drink I had at my wedding, because I knew I couldn't drink too much, I just had one drink, and it was my one uncle was giving us some whiskey.
Yeah.
So I drank one shot of that, just to be polite when he was giving it to us. That's all I had. But
we wanted to enjoy the night more too, without feeling sick, or we wanted to remember it too.
we, what was I going to say? I taught a lot of people how to swing dance. The music at my wedding was a lot more upbeat than at most weddings. So
That's what we've heard.
A lot of upbeat country. I like it. I love it. It's the perfect song to swing dance to.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a kid in my youth group. Some of you probably know who this is. He used to hit on girls at youth events by going up to them and offering to teach them how to swing dance. So I learned how to swing dance also from him. Never picked up any girls doing that though. We made $100 at the dollar dance. A lot of people came and danced with me. It was fun.
I thought it was more.
No, it was 100 even. If it was
that was a lot of fun though.
If it was some other number, I would have remembered it, but it was $100 even.
That was, I'll tell you what, that was very fun because I danced with Gramps, I danced with Leo. Oh my gosh, who else did I danced with a handful of people. I had quite a few people that lined up to dance with me, but Leo came back a couple times to dance. I think your mom might have too.
I think so too.
I think Granny did.
Joe Zealous danced with me.
That was hilarious.
It was hilarious.
Because wasn't there like a whole thing that like Luke and Elijah were like, you're gonna, I don't know, you said something about they were gonna.
Remember.
It was the whole thing. Everyone thought it would be funny, and he actually went and did it, and it was just hilarious.
Yeah, at the mother-son dance, I did The Gambler, because that's one of my mom's favorite songs. She always played it for us. And I think he got the point across. I didn't want to be sappy and do that kind of dance, because that's just not my personality. But everyone enjoyed that. My mom seemed to enjoy that pretty well, too.
Oh, heavens. I can't even remember what I danced with Andrew to.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. I should remember, but I can't. I think mine was upbeat, too.
Probably was.
Yeah, I can't remember. Oh, heavens. Anyway.
So, I remember the wedding just went like that, and our last song was Country Roads in WVU fashion.
Yep.
And then after that, we walked out, and we didn't have a grand exit. They just turned on all the lights in the gym, and
a lot of people started leaving.
We had a lot more people leave early than I thought they would, but it was a pretty tiring reception.
We partied hard though. Everyone partied. It was the biggest and best bash I could ask for, and I would love to do it all again. It was just so.
You don't get to
fun.
do it again.
I know, but it was like, and I still once in a while have dreams about that night, and it was just so awesome. I couldn't have asked for a better party. And that's what we wanted. We wanted a party. We didn't want
people to have a good time.
Yes, that was our whole aim. That's why we had a candy corner, and
there was so much candy in that candy corner.
yeah, there was a lot of candy. I bought so many like extra drinks at Sam's, like Gatorade, because it was hot. I didn't want people getting dehydrated, and I wanted something that people could grab. There was a good bit left. There was a good bit of other drinks left too. The bottled stuff, my mom asked, hey, you mind if I leave it for the people that are cleaning up? I said, definitely do it. Because I was grateful that we didn't have to clean up. I'm so grateful that your mom really urged for that to happen, too.
She urged us always have someone else come and clean up your wedding, which I'm going to follow that advice.
Definitely, because we didn't fully believe her, but by the time of that end of the night, we definitely believed her. Because we just gathered up some of the things we wanted. Anytime you guys are moving, it's because we're vibrating.
Yeah, I have my phone propped up against a cooler here on this table.
But yeah, we just gathered a couple of things we wanted, and
we left the wedding in a $700 car.
Yeah, because the car I was driving at the time, some of you know, I was driving a Mercury Sable. It was a beater car. I needed a vehicle because the last vehicle I had took a kaput, and I needed a vehicle to get to and from work. And
hey, what happened to the vehicle you had before that?
That was aluminum.
No, the Monty.
Oh, shut up.
The one time I didn't tell her to slow down. What?
I was going decent. I was running the speed limit.
I saw a car in front of you, and I said, should I tell her that there's a car? Nah, she doesn't like it when I do that. Then a few seconds later, I said, honey, And then you slammed on the brakes and slammed into the fire hydrant.
Anyway.
We were.
No, I had a car between then and that point. I was drunk.
Because we had the 70 Monte Carlo, we wanted to make our grand exit in that. But unfortunately, it wasn't ready by then.
Well, and I'm glad that didn't work out. There was 2 blessings out of that. So the car had a short that the mechanic I took it to, there was actually a short in the car. Because a lot of you knew I was driving that car and I wanted to leave in that car. It was literally 3 days before our pictures. And we were getting it together. The car was actually put together. It just, the last thing was the night before. My mom was struggling to get it. It was running, everything was fine, but then it started spewing fuel everywhere because the carburetor, it was done, it was shot. It was the original carburetor, so I still have it, but that's besides the point. But after the accident and after we pulled it apart and everything, we found out there was a short, and the guy, he had worked on cars pretty much all his life, and he professionally like rebuilt cars, things like that. And he told me, he said, no, he said, there was a couple of things you would have never knew without the front end off. He said, and you're lucky that that's the case, or your car could have blew up. He said, it would have been a random thing, but he said, it's because of wear. He said it was the wires and stuff like that. He said there was just a couple of small things you would have never saw without the front clip off. I said, wow. I said, I guess it was a blessing in disguise. And then something else, my mom, she was actually having nightmares about a car accident and ended up being Gramps' car that got the fate, I guess. But as a result, I was glad it wasn't my Monte Carlo. But yeah, it was, again, things behind the scenes some people didn't know. But yeah, the whole reception was a lot of fun. I'm glad we set it up the way we did.
And then we came home, had a day between the wedding and leaving for the honeymoon, which we went to Mass. That was Father Jonathan's last Mass before he left to go back to Pittsburgh.
And we were wearing our Just Married shirts.
Mine doesn't fit anymore. I got a lot fatter since the wedding.
I got thinner. A little bit.
You got a lot thinner.
But, and then we had the after brunch.
Yeah, we had a brunch the next day at White Rose.
That went pretty well. Got to see the family before they head out, before we went away for a week.
One bit of wedding advice people always gave me was to have a day between the wedding and the reception, in the honeymoon. Don't just go straight there. I don't think that's really necessary.
Okay, so I could go off of, if you are going far away, that's probably a good idea, maybe. Like, if you're traveling, taking a day of rest probably is a good idea, because you're bogged down after that. I mean, that hard party, definitely take a break. If you're gonna, like, travel for an entire day afterward, that is where I would agree with that. But we were pretty much local. Because
we came here, it's an hour away.
Where we are right now is where we spent our week just enjoying our new married life.
And any rail fans out there, you got to make it to the Bridgeview B&B at some point. It's the perfect place for a rail fan.
Well, and even people that aren't like hardcore rail fans, it's so peaceful. I mean, where else are you going to find these views?
Yeah, the river's right there. You can go fishing. There's a lot of birds that come here. You can do bird watching. And there's the Rockville Bridge.
Yep. Where else are you going to find those views?
You know, I think Amtrak's coming soon.
Well, and, okay, so another thing was the fact that we chose here because it's quiet and we wanted to relax. It gave us time to ourselves. And I'm glad we did it that way. And also, I constantly have this paranoia. If we're going to be gone for an extended period of time, I like being close to home, because if something were to happen. And there was a couple of things on my mind at that time that I won't exclude, but there was a couple of things on my mind at that time that I was worried about and wanted to be close to home. But we just love this place. We could have went somewhere far away, spent way too much money, but We came here, we were able to utilize our money better, and we used our money to get his first truck. Because we got
that truck.
Well, we got a lot of money as gifts, and we are so grateful for everyone, for all those gifts that everyone sent. Goodness gracious, I'm using a lot of the stuff that has been sent to us, and you have too. And the money that was used, we used for our honeymoon, and we got your first truck, Philip.
I miss that truck so much.
Yeah, but it was a good start for you.
That was such a good truck. I miss him.
Oh, I know. I mean, you didn't make a lot of money off of him, but
Yeah, I got Arlo.
it made you realize you love trucks.
I do love trucks. My truck I have now is pretty sweet too.
Mm-hmm.
We left it down there just because getting up here is a lot of back roads that are small.
And the parking here isn't huge, and it can be tight sometimes, especially if they're full, which they are fully booked.
Well, anyway, 2 years today.
We're very happy, and thank you all for helping out.
Thanks for the wedding wine, Mom and Dad. It was pretty good.
It was pretty good, especially for coming from Israel.
Yeah.
All the way from Israel.
I didn't know Israelis made wine.
Well. Alright. So glad to remember. Love you guys all. Thank you for coming to the wedding. Those who came, thank you again for all the gifts that you all gave us. Again, just happy to remember.
And my phone is ringing, so bye. Alright, have a good night.
Night.